Hello, I'm James Kiernan, VP of Agency Development from Penske Media. Penske Media, we have over 31 properties ranging from Billboard, Rolling Stone, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and so many other properties that speak to all aspects of culture, lifestyle, and art and music. I'm here today having a conversation with Lou Cohen from EY. Lou, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Lou Cohen. I lead a Center of Excellence for Digital Marketing and Demand Generation in the Americas at EY. I'm also a professor of digital marketing at NYU, Baruch College, and Yeshiva University here in New York.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
Love to kind of just kick it off. I'm really intrigued by your experience by being both a professor as well as an educator within your organization.
Yep.
Within the field of digital marketing, I always find it to be exceptionally challenging for institutions, even schools like Newhouse, to maintain a curriculum that is consistent and reflective of the industry at large. So how do you go about keeping your curriculum fresh, both like in the classroom and outside?
You know, it's difficult to stay on top of the latest, greatest trends for anybody in marketing because it's changing every day.
Absolutely.
And for me, I honestly believe that being a professor forces me to stay on top of those trends because my students will ask me every week about something that's in the press, something they're hearing about, something they're experiencing, and that makes me a better marketer for my firm.
Right.
And so there is a benefit to having that side gig as a professor because it's overall I'm just more capable. But I would also add to your point about like teaching internally at EY, I'm the guy who's responsible for everything brand to demand for every sector and service line within Ernst & Young. And so I often am also teaching the marketers about how the latest technology works, or like what are we going to do with AI? How do we use a CDP? How do we make the most of our data? And advising them on their own strategies for their specific area.
Yeah, excellent. We as an industry, I feel like, are always constantly called upon to educate, especially in the digital marketing industry. Having come up from the agency side, a big point that I used to make was I'm happy to educate you on digital media or even interactive advertising, but I would also challenge my traditional counterparts to educate me on their side because I felt like it would provide me with like the context to make what I'm explaining to them even more relevant.
Yep. I mean, I have worked on the publisher side of my career, and it's sort of like everybody's expected to educate each other.
Right.
Right. Agencies, they have a different perspective than publishers, media companies, different perspective than the client. And if you can't appreciate each other's vantage point and the role that each other play in that ecosystem, you're never really going to be successful in this world of marketing because, you know, the bigger brands, you're always working with agencies.
Yep.
And if you can't appreciate the challenges they face, that's going to make it very hard to have that partnership with your agency.
Absolutely.
And then if you don't really understand what the media companies and the publishers of content offer you, well, why would you buy them? And your agency is trying to advocate for the ones they believe are your best options. Yep. And so it's this trio that just has to be three legs of the stool.
Absolutely. You know, I couldn't agree more. Having that productive working relationship between client, agency, partner, I'll emphasize partner versus vendor. I can't stand the term vendor, but partner. And just being really open in terms of like, yes, the partner is going to have a direct conversation, direct relationship with your client. Agency should feel confident and comfortable with that. You shouldn't look to circumvent the agency. Agency should always be part of it as an advocate for the client.
Yep.
I feel like we all just need to be a lot more open in terms of that triumphant relationship. So a great deal of discussion around brand storytelling, one of the hottest topics in our industry these days, but often it's discussed in the context of the consumer marketing angle. Love to kind of hear your perspective, brand storytelling from a B2B marketer standpoint.
Yeah, it's particularly interesting how people are starting to realize in the world of B2B how important brand is. And I kind of have to go back a sec and talk about like what exactly is B2B.
Right.
Because what people tend to forget is most of the companies we think of as B2C really are B2B. And think about any CPG company, right? Kraft Mac and Cheese, they're actually, their primary customer is distributors, wholesalers, supermarkets, Target, Walmart. It's those guys. It's not the actual buyer of the mac and cheese, but they advertise to the general consumer because they need the consumer buying from the distributor or the retailer. And so you need both. And so understanding that so many businesses are B2B, not just the B2B like service companies that we think of. Brand is finally being recognized for the sort of X factor it can be. And in order to show the value of that investment, because it is a bigger investment that we have to make to really grow the brand, people have to show, actually, we can change hearts and minds, we can win people over, we can tell better stories about who we are as a brand. When we take that approach, when we understand that it's a person at the end of the day that's making those buying decisions, or a group of people, and showing relevance through storytelling, through messaging, through better creative, and it holds us as marketers to a higher standard. Like, we actually can't just say, well, my service solves your problem. So we can't just say, my service solves your problem. We have to actually show why and how through better storytelling.
Sure, sure. I guess something also to consider, everyone's encouraging to bring your own self to work, your true self to work, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So speaking to them as humans versus like speaking to them as hardcore B2B decision makers probably also factors in as well, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Like, I can't just sell software, right? Or I can't just sell a service. It's, things like tax and accounting, which EY is very prominently known for. Our brand is quite strong there. Well, great that we have tax services and accounting services, but at the end of the day, we're solving your actual business challenge as a person in your job. We're here to make you successful. And that's the kind of story we need to tell about how we're making our clients individually and as a group successful.
Excellent, excellent. Understand you lead a big team, a multifunctional team, a center of excellence team ranging from like MarTech, data analytics, media. Love to kind of get your thoughts in terms of how do you go about recruiting, retaining talent in like this marketplace where there's so many different options to go to consultancies, to go to tech players and all of that. Love to kind of get your take on that.
It's funny. My student population, they all want to work for TikTok and Amazon and Google and Microsoft and like the big tech companies. And I'm like, yes, I have that network and I can help them make connections there. But I'm also of the same mind. It's like, the brand itself that you're working for is not necessarily the most important thing. It's the work you do and the people you work with. And years ago, when I worked for Microsoft, we talked a lot about culture and the culture of team and what it means to be a people manager. And I would argue in my career, that's where I learned how to be an effective team leader and people manager. And I've been able to translate that through multiple jobs in my career. But if you were to ask my team, like, what makes our team special, they would tell you it's the culture of our group. And there are some things that I prioritize differently than others. Like, my number one rule with my team is family and your health and welfare come first. And so if you have a sick kid, you're not feeling well, like, don't even ask for permission to take the day. Like, just let me know when you have a minute during the day. I will assume if you're not working that day, something is up.
Right.
But just let me know so that I'm not worried about you, that everything is okay. And we've had situations come up from somebody not feeling well, a kid sick, to much worse things like deaths in the family, where people have needed that flexibility in that time. And they know my number one rule is that they never have to question it, and people have been able to just live their lives. But it's the culture of our team is we work really hard, we work on challenging, interesting work, but at the end of the day, we are people with lives, and there has to be an effective work-life balance. I will challenge my team with some of the most complex things you'll find in marketing, but there comes a benefit to doing that kind of challenging work too, and that has to be met. And I'm also very open to feedback, and so while I'm sort of the team leader, I'll do the work with them if I need to, or step in. And I tell them all the time, I hired them because they're better than I am at doing their job. I hired them so that they can eclipse my capability, and I don't want to do their job. Like, don't let me do your job. You do your best work, and I'll provide air cover and move things out of the way so you can do your best work. And that all just, it's all about the culture of the group. And so within EY even, we know we're a destination team. People have asked, like, hey, can I do a rotation working with your team? And it's a privilege to lead this group. As far as recruiting goes, I've got a tremendous network of people, partially because I'm a professor for so long.
True.
And so I've been able to recruit talent from past classes, or like I have people that have worked with me in prior companies that now work with me at EY again. And I really treat it very carefully. It is quite humbling that people have trusted me with their careers, that people want to work with me a second time or even a third time in at least one case. But I believe it's because we've created a great culture within this group.
Team culture, group culture, so important. Absolutely, companies and corporations should do their best to implement a welcoming, collaborative culture, but it really comes down to your team. That's why I'm very reluctant when someone asks me my take on a particular company to just paint a broad brush, because it really comes down to who you're working for.
Yeah.
What team are you on? Because it could be dramatically different from like one team to another, even within a broader organization.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think some people are intimidated by professional services and the world of consulting and all of that. But the one thing that I found in my 4.5 years at EY is, one thing that EY understands is the people are the thing we sell.
Right.
Right? We are a company that sells intellectual capital. And I feel like that is true to the industry of professional services. Like, the firms recognize the talent is the product, and so they got to take care of the people.
Yeah.
And I think, in the world of marketing, I do feel like our companies generally understand taking care of our people should be one of the most important things that the companies prioritize.
Hear, hear. Couldn't say better myself. So I'll close it out with my last question. It's a two-pronged question. Often we spend too much time disproportionately talking about topics that I would say fall in the shiny object category.
Yep.
There were years ago, I remember having to write countless POVs on Second Life. Turns out, like, virtual worlds, even right now, are kind of like slow to take. But sometimes it is important to spend that disproportionate amount of time because we're at the epicenter, like, of setting the ground rules, establishing like the best practices so that it can scale 10, 20 years from now. All that being said, what's a topic you feel we're spending too much time talking about, and what's a topic that probably warrants more attention?
Yep. So, well, last year it was all metaverse, and we see where that went.
Yep.
But this year it's all about AI. And when I talk about AI, I do feel like we are not seeing the forest for the trees. And so I do think that is an area where we're spending too much time talking about AI and not enough time understanding the problems that it can enable us to solve. And it is an area where, EY does service our customers around this topic, but do we really know what it can do in the current flavor of generative AI?
Yep.
Because where I start my conversation on AI is, did you know it's been around since like the 70s?
True.
And we've been using it this whole time. You just don't think of it that way. So it's a little funny to people like me that actually we've been dealing with AI for a long time. My whole career, it's been a part of it. You just didn't recognize it.
Or perhaps it was also more behind the scenes, like powering a lot of the technologies that had more consumer-facing aspects to it. But now it seems to be front and center.
Yeah, and now it's in the public domain. Everybody's aware of it, which is great. It means that there's a new wave of innovation that's going to come with it, new ideas, new capabilities, but it's still very nascent. It's still, generative AI is new. We don't totally trust or know what it can be capable of today. Down the road, 100% believe it's going to change how we work. And that's wonderful. But in the near term, the technology I'm actually really excited about is CDPs, customer data platforms. Because in the very short term, 2024, Google is going to eliminate use of third-party cookies. And they've been talking about that for years. Well, we're finally there.
All right, this is the year.
This is the year that first-party data has its heyday. And for the companies that aren't ready, they're really going to be in trouble in 2024. And I was very privileged, again, in my vantage point at EY, we were the first customer to work on Adobe's B2B real-time CDP. And that customer data platform has allowed me to solve massive data chasms that were facing me a few years ago. And I had the opportunity to be the very first customer, help develop the product with Adobe and EY's consultancy. And what we came out with really has been a tremendous improvement to our business. It gives us that very real source of truth about our customers, allowing us to power everything from CRM to personalization, marketing automation, with rich data. And to me, the businesses that aren't prioritizing their data and valuing enhanced first-party data now, they shouldn't be worried so much about AI. They should be worried about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think CDPs preparing for a world where the cookies aren't there, and loss of signal, which has been talked about a lot during this conference. What I worry about is that yes, there's some progressive marketers, including yourselves, who are preparing, who have internal task forces doing a lot of test and learns, but I feel like there's so many that really won't act until that day.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how everything unfolds.
I mean, fortunately, there are companies that can help them with that problem
There you go.
when they get there, but to me, I have to look further ahead. And fortunately, we've been able to do just that on the data side. And now we're really trying to figure out, where does AI play? How does that work for us? How can we make the most leverage out of it to be efficient? But it's interesting. My teams have asked the question a lot of people ask, is AI going to replace jobs? I'm like, no, it's actually going to make you more strategic.
Yep.
It's going to give you the opportunity to spend less time just doing those tasks, and you're going to spend more time doing more high-value work.
Yeah, absolutely. The quote I also heard was, AI is not going to take your job. Someone who knows and understands AI will take your job.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point.
Well, Lou, excellent. Really enjoyed the conversation. And again, thanks for providing all these interesting insights.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, excellent.